This is the Jay Show. My name is Jay Smith, and we are now going to about ready to go into the 5th episode. I have with me my expert, Hatun Tash. Good to have you back again.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
It's terrific to see where we're moving with this material. Now, we've already done 4 episodes laying the groundwork, so to speak, to get into these 26 different Arabic Qurans. But let's just do a quick review to help the people who are coming alongside us. Also, maybe there's some new ones who have not really seen what we're talking about. Let's talk about how it all began. And from the very beginning, we have Muhammad. He was from receiving these revelations from 610 to 632, but the Quran was not written down that early, was it?
So tradition tells us Muhammad claimed to have his revelation at from 610 to 632. As he received his revelation, he told people, some people write things down, some people memorized it. It is written on the animal skins, on the bones. Yet when Muhammad died, he didn't leave book behind himself.
There was no codex and no book.
There was no codex.
And we thought that this is rather clumsy, that he would not have done this had he been given such an important task.
Yeah.
Why did he not have it written down to be preserved? Nonetheless, it was written down soon after his death.
Yes, from 630 to 634, we've got Caliph, who is the leader of Islamic country, Abu Bakr. He is also father-in-law of Muhammad. He compiles the first Quran because people urge him to compile the first Quran. He does this by ordering Zayd bin Thabit to write.
Zayd bin Thabit was a secretary
of Muhammad.
Perfectly capable of doing that. Nonetheless, he didn't receive the revelations. He had to go to different places to find them. And we talked in one of the episodes about he found one verse with only one man.
Yeah.
Which is in and of itself a problem because you're always supposed to have 2 witnesses.
Yes.
Okay?
So, and then when a first Quran has been compiled under the Abu Bakr, it was given to daughter of Umar, who was also wife of Muhammad, Hafsa.
Okay.
She kept that Quran under her bed for a couple of years. Around 646 to 656, we've got 3rd Caliph Uthman. When they went to war to Azerbaijan, people start calling each other kafir, non-believers, because the way they recite the Quran differently.
So there were differences appearing in different Qurans, and we also know there were differences also appearing in written texts.
Yes.
Because what we do know is that all those differences were then burned by Uthman. So these differences start to appear. We're talking about within 20 years. They're starting
around
to appear.
650s.
650. So 652. Uthman orders another recension, a second writing of the Quran.
Yes, he brings community of people together, 4 people, to make one.
Zayd bin Thabit again, Zubair, Harath, Alas, and Harith. So the 4 of them are rewriting that which had already been written under Abu Bakr in 632, 634. So 20 years later, they write a second Quran, a second canon, you might say, or a second recension.
Yeah.
So you have this second recension being written down 20 years after. They write it down, the 4 of them. They are to write it in a certain dialect, the Qurayshi dialect.
Yes. Uthman makes a claim because Quran has been revealed in the dialect of Quraysh. And as they make one perfect copy, they burn all the written form of the Quran.
All the other ones that
all the other
degree.
ones is burned. And then around 650s, we've got one perfect copy, which has been sent to provinces of Muslim countries.
9 provinces that we've come up with. Alexandria. Well, let's just do them. Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, Alexandria. We have Aden, Nishapur, and Herat. So those are the 9 different provinces that you've been able to find at the time of Uthman.
Yet we see from the Islamic tradition they are confused how many copies send out. Some people said 4, some people said 7, some people said 8. So we read like Islamic tradition is a bit messy on that.
Messy, but they would send one person with each copy, right?
Yes,
to make sure to preserve it.
Yes, people know better.
So why were there so many different copies then if they were supposed to be preserved so well with one individual to each province?
Oh, well, we will be asking those questions.
Those are the kind of questions we need to start asking now. So these are sent out to the different provinces. So at the time of Uthman, there should be one single copy, no variations.
Yes.
Okay? That's 652.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's where we're at now. Now we're going to move on, and what we're going to do in this episode, episode 5, we kind of giving a background. We're now going to move into the different readings.
Yeah.
Let's define terms. Let's look at some terms. What are we talking about here? What are these readings? What do people call them?
We are talking about firstly Ahruf, which according to Islamic tradition, Quran revealed to Muhammad in 7 Ahrufs, 7 different ways.
Okay. Define Ahruf. What do you mean by different ways? What are you talking about here?
It's a bit, Islamic tradition is confused about what is Ahruf means, but it is different dialects. So Islamic tradition tells us Bible, Torah, Zabur and Injil revealed to people from one gates of heaven. Yet Quran revealed to Muhammad from the 7 gates of heaven, which make it easy for people to recite and memorize.
Are you telling me that Muhammad heard Jibril give 7 different recitations coming from 7 different gates?
It's not Muhammad heard. So story comes in the lines of Muhammad received the revelation in one way when he was in Mecca. When he moved to Medina, Muhammad has a conversation with angel according to Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. That Muhammad says, my people are not capable to do in one way. Can you give me in a couple of different ways? And then they have conversation, goes back and forward, and then it stopped in 7. So as Muhammad and angel makes a deal, and they say, okay, Quran is going to be revealed to you in 7 different ways.
Are you saying therefore all 7 Muhammad did reveal it in that? So at some
according
point in his
to Islamic
life,
tradition,
in
yes.
that 22-year period, he actually told it 7 different ways.
Yes.
Each verse, or each time that there's a difference, he recited it that way differently.
And people memorized it like that because we read from the, again, Islamic tradition, there is a conversation about Surah 25, Surah Furqan, where 2 people are arguing which one is the right way. And Muhammad says, oh, it's all right, both of them are the right way because Quran has been revealed to me in 7 different ways.
Let me read what Bukhari and Muslim say, because they do talk about it. Let me just go ahead and recite it. It says, Gabriel recited the Quran to me in 1 harf. That's one singular for Ahruf. And I recited it back to him, but I requested him to increase, and he continued to increase for me until we stopped at 7 Ahrufs. This is what you're referring to, and that's in Sahih Bukhari. Gabriel comes to him and said, Allah has commanded that you recite the Quran for your people in 1 harf. The Prophet replied, I ask Allah's pardon and forgiveness. My people are not capable of doing this. Gabriel came again and said, Allah has commanded you to recite the Quran to your people in 2 ahruf. Muhammad said no a couple of more times. And finally, Allah has commanded you to recite the Quran to your people in 7 ahruf. And in whichever harf they recite, they would be right.
Yes.
Now, I hope people are hearing what we're saying. So it seems what we're talking about is that Muhammad received it 7 different ways. Or
Muhammad asked to receive it 7 different ways. But it's not, it doesn't look like it's how you pronounce it, because we look at the traditions, and tradition tells the way people were reciting the same surah, which made people to wanted to fight with other person. Like in one of the occasion, person wanted to grab other person because the way he is reciting. And in one of the occasion, we read again from the traditions, Ibn Ka'b, who is the one who's supposed to teach the Quran, his faith shakes because it is very different. And it is the same surah.
His faith was shaken.
Yeah, his faith is shaking because other person is reciting is very differently, and then Muhammad says that's all right.
I remember the story you read of where one of the individuals heard it. He grabbed him by the back of his neck and hauled him over to Muhammad and was very upset. And Muhammad said, no, that's perfectly okay. Now, let's look and we'll put on screen these problems, and we're going to, because no one really knows what Ahruf means. Yeah. Let's look at the screen, and here are some of the questions we asked.
So some of the people tells Ahrufs are the way you recite. It's only the pronunciation, how you recite it, but they would say Ahruf is the way it is revealed to Muhammad. So there is 7 Ahrufs, and that's the way it is revealed to Muhammad.
Okay, just unpack that a little bit. The pronunciation, help me here. And let's go to our Arab expert here. Is it not so that in order to pronounce it in different dialects, you would have to use vowelization? The the u in the e sound.
Yeah, ahruf.
The ahruf would require the dhamma, the kasra, and the fatha.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you as an Arab expert, were there any vowelization? Did that even exist in the 7th century?
No.
No, there were no vowelizations in the 7th century. So how can you have dialectical differences in the 7th century? Let me ask you again, when you read a newspaper in Syria or in Egypt or in Jordan, don't they keep the vowelization off of many of the newspapers so that those can be sold in different countries, and as you read it as an Arab in Libya or as an Arab in Jordan or as an Arab in Egypt, you would put your own dialectical or your own vowelization.
Yeah, we
onto it.
need the tashkil, which is the short vowels, to be able to read the word.
And the way they do it in Egypt would be different from Syria. The way they do it in Syria would be different from Jordan. And likewise, within those countries, there are different dialects too. Am I correct?
Different dialects, but their written would be the same.
Okay. Can you see the problem here?
Yes, but we need to remember, because Sahih Bukhari is writing to us around 870. So approximately 250 years after
240 years
240 years
afterwards,
event took place.
when there would have been Ahruf, there would have been vowelization in the 9th century,
Yes, in 9th century
but
there
not in
were,
the 7th century.
but because Sahih Bukhari is looking back and then he's assuming in the time of Muhammad, yes, there was the dialects.
So this is a historical anachronism. I hope the people who are watching this are seeing you can't make this excuse that these are different dialects,
Yeah.
not in a consonantal textual form, because Arabic is written in a consonantal form.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. We're going to show that. But okay, let's continue on. Now, are the Ahruf 7 types of verses in the Quran? Is that what's going on?
Some Muslim scholars says that is what is Ahruf is.
Now, is this the same thing as Qiraat?
No, so Jay, if you remember, when Muhammad received the revelation in 7 different dialects, 7 different ways, in around 650s, Uthman said, because Quran is revealed in the dialect of Quraysh, so we are going to compile the Quran in the Quraysh dialect. Yet, we know in 7th century, we had the dialect of
Quraysh, Hudayl, Tamim, Hawazin, Thaqif, Qinana, and Yemen.
So in 7th century, we've got 7 different dialects in Medina.
Right. That I can understand if you're just speaking it.
Yes.
What I can't understand is how do you write it?
Yeah, so because it's the consonantal letters and they didn't have the dots, so every writing should be the same. Yet, according to Sahih Bukhari, who writes 250 years after the event, tells us we decided, because Quran revealed in the dialect of Quraysh, we are compiling the Quran in perfect copy in the dialect of Quraysh. So whatever was Ahrufs before Uthman cancelled everything, and then he made one perfect one in the dialect of Quraysh.
Okay, now I want to go to my Arab expert again. I see you're shaking your head. You're seeing that there's a problem here, because that's okay with a spoken text. It's not okay in a written text.
No.
Now, what's
Not
the
okay.
problem here?
We need the tashkil, we need the dots. We can't
need the
just
dots.
depend on a drawing.
Okay, and this did not exist. Now we're talking about another thing. We're talking about the diacritical marks. Even the diacritical marks were not this early. We're going to talk about that later. We'll get to that. Just so you can see, these are 7 dialects that existed in that part of the world in the 7th century.
According to Islamic tradition.
According to the Islamic tradition. But they could not have been written down that early because there was no script that would have accommodated this kind of differentiation.
Yeah.
Nothing that would have been that's a sophisticated script. It would first need the dots and it would need the vowelization.
Yeah, I think it will be helpful to remember, according to Muslims, Ahruf has nothing to do with how you write the things down. It is all about how you pronounce it.
Understood, but when you pronounce it, it has to be pronounced. Written reference has to be pronounced. Okay, let's go back. Are the 7 Ahrufs just synonyms? Are these just the words that are written different, but they mean exactly the same thing?
Some Muslim scholars claim that. Yet, according to Yasir Qadri, who is the one of the well-known Muslim scholar, he says actually we don't know what is Ahruf means.
Okay,
no one knows what it means. And I read a couple of articles. Muslims would saying, oh, this is the miracle of the Quran. It is only Allah knows what it is.
Okay, it's obviously that man doesn't know
Yeah.
that. Let's move to the next screen. Do these ahruf refer to 7 different ways the verse can be changed? In other words, possibly the way they're ordered or letter variations? Or is that all we're talking about here?
When we look at the Qurans, different Arabic Qurans, we see consonantal letters are different. Order of the words are different. That's, I would say, like just looking at the current Qurans we have. But again, some Muslim scholars make these claims.
Would Muhammad have known all 7 dialects?
Yes, because he's the one who received them.
So he was
according to
quite a,
Islamic,
he's quite a linguist, then, is what you're saying. So this man was pretty scholarly.
Yet he didn't know how to read and write. Yes.
Or would you suggest maybe when he heard different dialects, he just said, yes, just accept it. Whether or not he spoke those dialects or not, whether or not he could even put on dialects, it could be he just recognized them and allowed them.
Yeah. Yes, but I'm not sure using vocabulary for the dialect is right one, because it's just messy, like no one knows what was those things, and historically it can't be the dialects. Yet that's the Muslim claims.
And of course, then the big elephant in the room is this. Which was the dialect? Which dialect was the one that Jibril used, the one that's in heaven? Which is the one that exists on these eternal tablets? Because there's a dialectic form that has to be sacrosanct. I guess Muslims would say the Qurayshi would be it.
That will be dangerous for them to say it, because so Quran is the eternal word of Allah, and question is, there was a time and space that this eternal word of Allah just took a place when Muhammad was in Medina, 7 different dialects. Yet, we read again from the Islamic tradition, it talks about Surah 2, Surah Baqarah, and Surah 3, Surah Imran. Those are the 2 surahs. They will intercede for you on the day of resurrection, on the day of judgment. So, they are the one who is going to defend you. If like I've got hundreds of variations in Surah 2 and Surah 3, and it is revealed in 7 different ways, the question comes, which way is going to defend you on the day of judgment?
Yeah, okay. And I guess the answer to that would be, we just
God
don't know.
knows.
We're just agnostic
God
on
knows.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so we really don't know which one Jibril. We're assuming it's a Quraysh, but we're not even sure what that means.
We don't know which is in the eternal speech of Allah, which is in the eternal tablets.
Okay. Now let's go to the next slide, because the next slide is very interesting. You've done something here, and this is something that you're going to have to unpack. It's a great graph, and this graph looks at the different reading. If you could unpack, because these are the different readers then that actually change the different texts after Uthman, and these are all after Uthman. This graph is enormously important. This starts to show some of the real problems with these ahruf.
Yeah. So we are starting around 650s when the perfect Quran has been compiled under the Uthman. Okay? As Uthman compiled perfect Quran in the dialect of Quraysh, he sent the Quran to lots of different cities.
Right.
So Islamic tradition doesn't know how many cities, but when you look at the history, we know there were 9 different cities.
Right.
So when you look at the Islamic writings, we see there was the Quran which has been sent to Mecca. It was sent with Abdullah ibn Sa'ib.
Okay, his dates are 682.
He died in 682.
So this is after Uthman, which would be 652.
Yeah, so this guy goes to Mecca with the perfect Quran to teach people.
Right.
Okay? And then we've got another Quran which stays in Medina.
Right.
And then with this Quran we've got Zayd bin Thabit.
Now he is the original
He is the secretary of Muhammad.
Secretary of Muhammad, who wrote the first recension and the second
Yeah.
recension.
And then we've got third Quran in Damascus, which was sent to Damascus. It was sent with
Al-Mughira ibn Shu'ba.
yes, with Ibn Shahaba, who died around 617.
Okay.
Okay, and then fourth Quran was sent to Kufa.
Let's get the name again.
Abu Abdul Rahman al-Sulaymi.
So Sulaimi,
Yes, and Sulaimi died around 690.
690, late 7th century.
Yes, and then fifth Quran is in Basra.
عامر ابن عبد القيس.
Abdul Qais.
Yeah.
674 he dies.
Yes, he died in 674. As Quran goes to Mecca with Abdullah ibn Saib, who dies in late 7th century. From this Quran, we've got Ibn Kathir. Don't get confused this Ibn Kathir with the Tasfir of Ibn Kathir.
Okay.
Ibn Kathir is in Mecca. He lived from 665 to 737. And then we've got, so he's got his Quran. And then we've got two students of him, Al-Bazi and Kumbul.
Okay.
We've got their Quran.
Okay, and they go into the 9th and 10th century and they die. Now, what you're going to show us later, not right now,
Yeah.
is that these have differences. They start including differences in their recitation than the Hafs, the original one, or you might say the one that we use today.
Yes.
Okay,
Let me
but
just
this is
emphasize something.
Go ahead.
So, Ibn Kathir is around 737. He died in 737. Perfect Quran has been compiled in Medina under the Uthman in 650s. So, approximate 100 years, 80 years after Uthman, we've got already different Quran in Mecca.
Okay, so in Mecca, within 100 years, you're already getting a different Quran,
Yes.
all right?
And then in 150 years, 200 years, around 864 and 903, Al-Bazi and Kumbul.
Yeah.
So we've got another two different Qurans which was born from one teacher, from Ibn Kathir.
So already three different Qurans in the, Mecca by the 10th century.
Yes.
Okay.
If you think about it, Mecca is very close to Medina, and it's approximate 2 centuries after perfect Quran compiled. And with this perfect Quran, we've got one person went to that area, yet we've got 3 different Qurans.
It looks like the students of those who received it did not agree with their teacher.
Yes.
Now hold on a minute. Stop there. We're going to unpack some more of that. But what does that tell you right off the top? Is this a book that comes from God, or is this a book that's being manipulated by men?
Muhammad made a claim it came from God, but we just look at the tradition and then we see human hand is actively working to contribute into eternal
To me,
world of
this
Allah.
is very clear that this
Man-made.
is human intervention.
Yeah.
These are human changes. These are human induced corruptions, you might say.
Which is very sad because Quran makes very serious claims about people's eternity, yet it's only 100 years or 150 years after the perfect Quran has been compiled.
Okay.
And then we've got Quran in Medina, which is by Zayd bin Thabit, who was in Medina. And then we've got like one of the Quran, which is which comes from Nafi. He died in 8th century, 785. From Nafi, we've got 2 people, Warsh and Qalun, and then we've got their Qurans.
Okay.
If you look at the dates, so Medina is where Uthman based, Medina is where the first perfect Quran has been compiled. And the Quran, the different Qurans comes to be exist in approximately 200 years or 150 years. It's in the same location where the perfect Quran has been compiled. We've got 3 different Arabic Qurans written.
And these could be because they just didn't like what was being said. They didn't like the way the word that was used. They didn't like the theological interpretations, and so they would change it. Now, we've been told that, so what, these are not real changes. We're going to get into that and show that these really are quite substantial changes. But just to give you an idea of Mecca, Medina, you have 3 different Qurans that come later. In Mecca, 3 different Qurans that come later in Medina. What about Damascus?
Yeah, and then in Damascus, we've got
المغيرة ابن شعبة.
who died around 670. And then we've got
ابن عامر.
Ibn Amir, who died approximately 80 years after perfect Quran has been compiled. Okay, from him we've got 2 students,
هشام ابن ذكوان.
They are dated 850s, approximately 200 years after one perfect Arabic Quran has been
Wow,
compiled.
these are 200 years later. So you're saying even in 200 years later, they're still changing it. So there's another 3 Qurans that are disagreeing in Damascus, 3 that disagree in Medina, 3 that disagree in Mecca. What about Kufa? Now, Kufa is where we are in Iraq. That's in what was today be Iraq.
So in Kufa, Uthman sent a person called
Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulaimi.
Yeah, he died in 690s. From him, we've got 3 main teachers.
Hamza al-Kisai, Abu Bakr Asim.
So they are all dated late 8th century. They are all dated late 8th century. And then we've got their students who have different Qurans.
Let's just read their names of their students. So
yeah, we've got
Hamza's students is what?
From Hamza, we've got Khalaf.
Khalaf وخلاد.
And from Al-Qasai, we've got
الدوري أبو علي الحارث.
and they are again died in 9th
Mid-9th century, so about 200 years later.
Yes. From Abu Bakr Asam, we've got,
حفص أبو بكر شعبة ابن عياش.
yes. So
Early 9th century for
early
both of them.
9th century. So the current Quran, which has been officialized in Egypt, is the Quran which is from Hafs. Okay, so that's the Quran which in the beginning was sent to Kufa,
Okay, and then
and in 1924, that is the Quran has been officialized.
Okay, now we want to wrap this all up together, so let's just finish with Basra. You have Basra. Just give the name of the student after Ibn Abdal. What's the student's name?
عامر ابن عبد القيس.
Okay, and then he
أبو
has
عمرو ابن العلاء.
and he has 2 students named.
الدوري السوسي.
Okay, Duri and Susi.
And
So
they're again 9th century
they're
people.
9th century again, 200
So
years
we've got
later.
like 3 people, 3 different Qurans ends up in 9th century.
So we have 3 coming out of Mecca, 3 coming out of Medina, 3 coming out of Damascus, 9 coming out of Kufa, and another 3 coming out of Basra.
Yes.
Ooh, two. Add that all up. 3, 6, 9, 12, another 9. That's 21 different Qurans already within 200 years just coming out of those 5 cities.
Yes.
We've got to wrap it up there for this episode. We're going to unpack this more. We're going to go into this and look and see what also we have. We have some other 3 groups that are going to come out in other cities. But for now, this shows me that this is a man-made document. This shows me there's lots of man-made interventions. Hatun, thanks so much for being with us. Those who've been here, don't go away. We're going to come back, unpack some even more. It gets worse as we go along. God be with you. We'll see you in the next episode.